brought in partly to do merchandising and partly because of my background as kind of a maker. And they knew that they wanted space. So Airbnb's culture is really strong in internal bonding, having space where people can come together. Our meeting rooms are all kind of themed after different Airbnb listings. The common studio is something that was really asked for. So these are the doors the way into the common studio. And our primary focus there was more, I really wanted to do something that people could access easily. So mostly we did screen printing, but my background in defining, I also brought in an foil stamper, just because it's a really easy thing for people to use. So for us, the space is really all about getting people away from their computers and giving people space to kind of experiment. You sit down all day and you're just expected to be creative, but a lot of times you hit a block and you kind of need to step away from that. So yeah, that's what this space is all about. So that's the foil stamper. Really easy thing for people to come in and do. So yeah, it's just been a really fun process.
Hello, my name is Ryan Moon, and I work at Nike. We're on the Blue Ribbon Studio. The Blue Ribbon Studio is our 2-year-old makerspace for all of design. At Nike, there's around 900 designers at the main campus, which is very broad from everyone from apparel, footwear, graphics, print, brand design, writers, everyone is under the design org. So the space is kind of designed for everyone. And it is a kind of a hands-on makerspace, but it's also really our clubhouse. Designers are sometimes sitting miles apart on the campus. So this is a space where we can come together and start to kind of talk and share ideas together. So our real kind of focus here is hands-on making. Part of that is through ERS Academy. Our Nike started as Blue Ribbon Studio, Blue Ribbon Sports. So Blue Ribbon Studio is kind of taking into that initial hands-on garage, kind of hands-on making approach, melting things in a lock line and stuff like that. So there's a great picture of like a day-to-day. Someone's on a heat press, someone's sublimating, there's a group working with leather, there's a bunch of people on computers, everything kind of happens there together. And another part of that as well is screen printing. So we have the whole screen print studio where we teach a class once or twice a week, which is open to everyone in design. So if you're a brand designer and you've never touched a screen print, a screen, or an apparel designer who hasn't done it in a while, you're kind of able to come in, learn those skills, and kind of do it on your own. This is part of our sewing studio as well, so kind of set up for apparel and footwear, but again, what I love about this is that it gives the tools to everyone, so you don't have to just be in that one category or genre, it's available to everyone. Part of it is bringing in technology too, so we have a VR setup in our sort of G2SIC dome, and really bringing a lot of outside collaborators in. So we had a group from London 2 weeks ago called Scan Lab. We were working with slit scanning and LiDAR scanning on a robotic arm. And that class was great because there were some innovation people working on that, but there was also apparel designers, material designers, people who had nothing to do with their own sort of work at Nike. It was great. So yeah, that's a quick intro to the studio.
Awesome. So just some logistical stuff. I don't know why people are sending me things. So let me just get this out of here. Sorry about that. And we'll also leave about 15 minutes for questions at the end, so make sure you're thinking of questions. So the IBM Make Lab, we just saw a really epic dedicated space. IBM Make Lab is a little bit of the opposite. So it's basically a 400 square foot space in our studio that's was originally intended for printers, so like office printers, copy machines, etc. And we kind of took it over. So we teach weekly screen printing classes, and we have a bunch of other types of making in the space, but it's really small, and it's kind of an upstart space. It has no official funding from IBM or sanctioning from IBM. We just kind of got all this stuff, moved it into a space, and since then it's kind of caught on like wildfire. But we still do stuff in really hacky ways. If you're familiar with screen printing, you know that it requires plumbing to make it happen. And the only only place where we could connect a hose is in a janitor's closet, and the janitor's closet is in the women's restroom. So that creates awkward situations on occasion if we have a deadline and we want to print something. The Make Lab kind of provides a contrast to something like the Blue Ribbon Studio, where you can, still get a lot done in a very informal way. So I'll bounce this question to Tim. Now that we've seen kind of, all these different types of spaces, why do they exist?
I think one of the reasons why these spaces exist is because work is changing. Both the kind of work that's going on, but also the workforce. And what these spaces do is they give tools to people that they can see immediate impact right in front of them. So when you're silk screening, there's no control Z. When I'm sign painting, if I need to redo something, I need to sort of live with the errors that I've made. And I think that we're seeing those feelings and those needs sort of bubbling up in the workforce. And I say that because with the Analog Lab and with the spaces that we've mentioned here, they're really coming from the employees mostly, that they're really being spurred by them, and management and people above are responding. They're saying, yes, this is about keeping people happy and engaged at work. I think our expectations around what work can be is no longer a 9-to-5 situation. I think it's more about bringing your whole self to work. And I think that employers and businesses know that when they have the whole self from an employee, that they're really getting the best work out of them.
Great. Completely agree with that. So, question number 2. These look like some pretty good, amazing spaces. Do y'all really get paid to do this?
They're all looking at me because I'm the only one who does. So, yes, I get paid to do this. This is my full-time gig. Again, it started off because this was asked for from designers. Again, designers being people who are creatives who are never really satisfied. A bunch of 900 people at 900 who are not really happy, and there's something that was asked for. So came from, we were kind of talking in the sort of hamburger model from the top and the bottom. So leadership and the designers kind of asked to put us together. And yeah, I get paid for this. I have a team of 5 people who work as sort of specialists. The idea is that they're not doing the work for people, but they're actually helping enable and teaching skills for them to do it themselves. So yes, I get paid for it, which is very balanced.
Can you speak a bit, Tim, about how that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't hired as the principal designer there. There were no roles for the Analog Research Lab when I started, but when it was in its infancy, I saw it and I knew that I would spend a lot of time in there. And so I essentially made it my job and worked it into what my job was. So I held dual roles. I was a communication designer and a communication scientist, now called the factory, and I was the principal designer of the Analog Research Lab. As of today, I believe it's a crew of about 4 folks, because now the Analog Lab gave birth to the Artist in Residency program, and that has its own headcount and budget as well.
Cool. Yeah, and definitely in my case, we have a team of 7 people that run the space, but it's on a purely volunteer basis. So people that are really passionate about, either screen printing or about 3D printing, about vinyl cutting and all those things, kind of dedicating their time after hours to help the space run. So who uses these spaces? Ryan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think for us, this is all design. So Nike at the World Headquarters is around 13,000 people, 900 just in design. So it's kind of set up for designers, kind of intentionally so that everyone works together. Of course, as a designer, you work cross-functionally with product managers and developers and all of the rest of the team. And this was the space where we really wanted everyone to work together. So again, it is everyone from brand, apparel, footwear, materials, graphics, color, anyone who can work to the design process.
Very cool. And Alexander, what about Airbnb?
Well, it's interesting at Airbnb, we really built the space thinking that the art department would use it, which is the team that I was on, mainly designers, filmmakers, what have you, creatives. But as it turned out, the majority of the people who end up using the space aren't in the creative field. We have a lot of engineers who use the space, a lot of teams that come in to do team building activities. it's open to that, and I really encourage people to come in who don't consider themselves to be creative, because there's something really beautiful about someone coming in and saying, well, but I don't want screen print, I'm not a creative person, I don't think I can really do this, and ultimately it's a process, so we break down step by step, and the nice thing about it is that, as Tim was saying, you don't have a control Z. You usually can start it and finish it in one day. So I think that's a nice thing to experience, and perhaps the work that you're doing that doesn't happen. So also at Airbnb, all the new hires come through the space. So every single person who comes to HQ as a new hire at the company comes and sees the studio. So I think that's a great spark too. Is right away and get to experience it and are sort of invited to it.
That's really cool. I think, yeah, at the end, it's primarily designers who use it today, but what it has done is proved to be a really good way to bridge the gap between design and other disciplines in the company. Design is relatively new to idea. We've been part of kind of sitting at the table only in the last 4 years or so. So being able to reach out to a marketing team, on your immediate team, or a distinguished engineer, an IBM fellow, and have them come take a class or come pull a print, that's a way to bridge the gap and make design a lot more accessible. I think in the workplace today, we're looking at a lot of design transformation, and that's at a process level. Looking at design thinking and how might we look at design with a strategy eye. This is also part of that design transformation. Bringing back the culture of design school and making, bringing all of that there is also really important, and having people understand the value of design and also appreciate the value of physically making things. Yeah. So yeah, what do you make?
So in the Analog Research Lab, we made just about everything except for t-shirts. And if you work in a tech company, you love t-shirts, and we did not want to make them. These were things that were reinforcing the culture. So Lee Dunham came in and spoke, and I love this quote from her, so I printed this on some old time cards. Hack the Graph was really big when I started there. This is a screen print that I did there. Facebook's Analog Lab is fairly famous for its red type posters. Whenever I would do those, I would always make a slight twist on them. So this one is done more in script. And sometimes, what the great thing about this was is that sometimes the influences came from the posters themselves and went out to the community. Other times we were responding to the community, so it went both ways. And then at Pinterest, I've been doing these sort of risograph walls where I run sort of a drawing program. Here's a detail where people can draw and sort of fill in, sort of ad lib style, and make these based walls that we install in a lot of our offices.
So at Home Studio, when I was running the space, I really didn't put parameters on what people could or couldn't make. I was okay with making t-shirts, mainly because I just wanted people to do it. And even if it ended up being like a failure, which usually it isn't, you end up learning something. And as somebody who's making things all the time, it's really easy to say like, okay, you can't do that. But ultimately, it's way more fun when people are like, it's a good idea, and then try it. So this though is a picture of the keychains that we make with the new hires. So this is done with the foil stamper, which, as I was saying before, is a bookbinding tool. It's basically a process. It's very simple, and we would hand set the type. Yeah, we can set our start dates and then foil stamp those on the letter. This was a great example of somebody who had never screen printed before and took on a very ambitious first project. But look at it, totally worked. And he had so much fun doing it. This was for an installation at Airbnb, and it's a screen printed piece of canvas. And then these are some notebooks. As I mentioned, I did some bookbinding in my past, so these are really easy to make, surprisingly. And we just had a couple of screens that we could keep on hand so that people could screen print
a lot of Pokemon printed in our studio too.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thing. Yeah, our studio, we have a lot of mixed, because we have a lot of mixed fields in Nike and disciplines. So we have everything from washing and dyeing, screen printing, a tool shop, CNC milling, 3D printing, laser cutting, sewing, a library, a little bit of everything. But this is a shot of our CEO, Mark Parker, who in front of a bunch of posters made from designers. I think one of the advantages of our studio is that we have a CEO of our company who is a designer. So he understands that this is a necessary thing for work cultures and for designers to do. So these are all posters from Intro to Poster Printing class, which we do almost every week. This is a great example, also done in the screen printing room. This is a Stone Island shoe which just came out. And the screen printing on the toe of that is printed with silicon. And that's kind of traditionally an apparel technique. Here we are. And at Nike, sort of apparel and footwear are very kind of separate things. They're big beasts kind of in their own right. So a lot of the apparel technologies don't get shared to the footwear and vice versa. So because of the space, we had the expertise in screen printing. So the footwear factories couldn't achieve this. So they made it in the studio, sent the actual thing to the factories, and they're like, this is how you do it. So it actually affected, how to change the sort of production model. This is a couple of the guys from the studio on the CNC mill, which is great, which is subtractive manufacturing. And what we really love is we have all of these tools, which we have in factories, but the idea is that we can get designers trained on them, and they start to use them the wrong way. So the paintings behind were all done on the CNC mill, kind of dipping sort of the robotic into paint, and also that sort of bust was also created on there, as well as all sorts of traditional things which you do on the mill. So it was kind of the idea of taking one tool and doing a whole bunch of different things, the way it's not intended to do.
Yeah, the main lab that medium mostly poster printing, just because of the limitations of space. So this is a designer from our Grizzly studio in the UK, printing an Halloween poster. And we do print t-shirts, because again, it's kind of like Alexander's case. We're so small that we really just want people making, and if they want to make t-shirts, then we're all for that. That kind of just brings up the culture and also helps build teams as well. Because you see then people wearing these around the studio. We've done recently a lot of different workshops. So, people at work have all these secret hidden skills that they never tell you about. But we're giving them an opportunity to share them with the rest of the studio. So one of the gals on the Blue Mix team was really great at block printing, so she did a block printing workshop, and this is one of the awesome blocks that was cut that day. And we sometimes try to respond to goings-ons at events. So on Wednesday, International Women's Day, we had a class and we printed this poster. So a lot of times it's responding to things happening in the world or in the company and trying to create some kind of visual imagery around that. So this is a big one. And as someone familiar and unfamiliar with makerspaces, I'm really curious what kind of challenges y'all have faced in kind of building these spaces up.
So it's in the name. Number one is space, right? Finding that kind of space. And number two is often funding. So what you've heard before, a lot of people are sort of scrapping these things together without funding from up high. I think those are probably two of the most common things. And then getting people inside it is also pretty tough. At least that was what it was like at Facebook.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of similar challenges. We had the advantage of this was asked for from design, so it was, this is designer's voice. But I think that was our biggest thing was actually changing the model of how you work at work. We still really face a lot of flack of people like if you're not at your desk, you're not working. Where's so and so? They're at BRS. So I think it's trying to figure out the challenge is how do we change the model of how people work at work. It's a slow, but steady change.
Yeah, and at IBM, I think we have a unique challenge. As an older company, there's a lot of focus on the bottom line and making money. And so how the heck does a space like this relate to that? So one is funding is related to that. We've tried to solve that in our own way by making ourselves self-sustaining. So because we don't have a budget from IBM, we basically have the people who are using the space fund the space. So each time they come in to do a project, they'll kind of chip in like $5 to $10, and that'll go to buying more materials. It's a lot cheaper than doing it on your own, and it's such a small amount that most people never mind paying it. So that's one thing. But also, the second one is proving business value. To kind of move towards a funding model, because that's what we ultimately want to do, we've had to really figure out ways to measure the success of the space. And it can't be directly tied to any bottom line. Like, it's not going to affect, 99% of the time, it's not going to affect your software product, for example. Like in the studio, we're all building software products, and the stuff that we do in the Make Lab doesn't really touch that. And so we've had to move it away from that and really focus our success around recruiting, retention, around social media awareness, and design influence and maker influence in the company. So like I said earlier, it's a way to reach out to non-designers and non-makers and get them making, get them to tap into their creative side. And so a lot of the justification is focused around all of that: recruiting, retention, outreach, and visibility. That's a huge reason why I guess our higher ups see value in the space, and also a ton of people are using it. So I think that's also really important. So I think this is a question that's on everyone's mind. There's some awesome spaces up here, some big, some small, but if I want a space like this, where do I start? So I'll start with the first one. It's really start small and start quickly. So this is how the Make Lab started. This is a shop light from Home Depot, $15.99. 2 halves of a Swiffer, and 2 child-sized chairs from IKEA that it's propped up on. And so what's happening here is we're burning screens in my bathroom. So that's where we started burning screens to be able to print posters in our space. We didn't have facilities to do that, but we still wanted to make posters. So there's ways to do it very small. So it's just printing things at home, bringing it into work, and then people start to question what it is, how we can get one, and how we can get involved. And that kind of snowballs into something bigger. The Make Lab started with just this idea that we pulled out a supply closet. We pulled out of a supply closet like a screen printing setup. It would have everything we needed, like canvas drying racks. For some reason, we don't have plumbing here, but we still deal with that problem. So anyway, you can start small. And places like the Analog Research Lab, they started just by taking over Slack spaces in Facebook's campus and printing and letterpressing, and that spurs curiosity. That kind of brings making in front of people's eyes, and people want to come and pull a print, get their hands a little dirty as they're doing product work. So it's all about starting small. I mean, you can start by just saying, here's $1 million, go build a space, but in our opinion, that's not the best way. It has to be an approach that comes both from the bottom and ideally from the top, but it can definitely work with just from the bottom. That's the most important step. And here's more on that.
Yeah, finding your champions, the hamburger style again. So having the sort of core group is the designers, the people who want to be there. I think we find this all the time where we don't want to drag people to come and do fun, amazing, cool stuff. If you want to be there, come. But on the other side is we really need that sort of support from the top. So when we began, it was a really new idea to have this sort of space which was a little bit more free thinking. People allowed to do their personal stuff, it's work stuff, it's a little bit of everything. And we really had sort of 2 people, like the VP of color design and the VP of graphics, who really supported their designers being there. And that was really our kind of core constituency, down to the point where the CEO said, "Oh, color looks a lot better." And she said, "Well, we finally have a place where we can all be in one room together, or we can actually work through things on boards." The whole team, the color department is almost 90 people. So they're seeing it happen, and then the other departments are like, we should kind of get on this too. So, and kind of finding those people who do really look after the space. And we have a staff of 5 people, so there's also people who are, our screen printing person is out this week at Flatstock, and there's volunteers who are then watching the space. So there's all sorts of champions across, the whole company from top and the bottom.
Yeah, and I think that a huge part of it too is aligning with the culture of your company. I think it also ties in with finding your champions. So many of us, I think probably everyone, has hobbies and things that they do outside of work, and you do only bring part of yourself to work most of the time, but if you start to get to know people over there, you find out that people have these talents, that they do outside of work, and it's incredible when you can bring all those people together and start a little culture around that. It helps if you have designer founders who really want these types of spaces to exist, but those people exist within your company regardless of whether or not your company was founded by a designer. So I think it is about that. And also, like with Airbnb, we have this really strong culture of wanting everyone to feel really included. So this is a great way to do that. It's very much a leveler when you bring people from all the different hierarchies into a space and nobody's ever screen printed before. So I think that's a really great argument for it, is that we all want to feel good at work. We all want to be creative, and I think it ultimately does help the larger scheme of things as well. So
Yeah, I think in addition to that, in terms of aligning with making, something that we found really successful is kind of similar to y'all making keychains. We started making posters for every incoming class of designers. So they come in every 3 to 4 months, and we would basically welcome them with a custom-made poster. And that became something that was really fun for us to do, really fun for them, because then they had a recognition of their first day, and also really great for leadership, because they started seeing it as a trend, and they would ask us, like, oh, when's the next poster coming? Like, are you working on it? Like, where is it? So it's really about aligning, your making with your company activity. If you can get some kind of making injected in, patterns and, traditions, then you're that much more important, and you have that much more reason to grow and to kind of foster a community.
So our fourth takeaway is actually for all of you. In keeping with our makerspace mentality, the 4 of us made an exquisite corpse print that was made in 4 different states with 4 different makerspaces. It started with me on a risograph, and went to Alexandria for a silk screen, and then to Patrick for another silk screen, and then to Ryan. How many of these did we bring?
I think we have about 50.
We brought you?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll just give away 20.
We only have 20.
So if you have a question, we'd love to give you a poster. And if you don't have a question yet, we still have plenty of more questions that we can answer.
So that's kind of where we'll go to questions. So if you go to the microphone, then the rest of the room will be able to hear you. And also importantly, the deck that we just showed you is up at this link in case you want to access it.
So yeah, hi, I'm Christian. I'm a creative director at an ad agency. So it was pretty cool what you shared. I have 2 questions. I think kind of relate to each other. I think you answered a bit of that in your deck, but I want to be more specific. So how to align the kind of the studio activity to the company culture and to the goals that you have to meet during your everyday, and related to that, how do you sell to the stakeholders to have a space like this, and it's not a waste of show them it's not a waste of time or money?
I mean, so that was similar to one of the questions that we posed. I think since I didn't chime in on that one, I'll chime in on this. One of the best ways to sell one of these spaces in, or to make alignment, is to really look at what is your company trying to do at that moment, right? So for us at Pinterest, we're all about discovering things and doing things. right? So we have something called studio nights where a employee will teach a bunch of other employees some sort of crazy skill that they have. So recently there was one on knitting, I think, and it sold out, you know, super quick. And they need spaces and materials for that. And so it's like, oh, we can start to help with that. There's also engineers that want to make things and tinker. And so it's about seeing those things happening and providing some sort of solution, saying, hey, we can do this, even if it just starts really small, right? So I can do this at my desk. It's going to take $100 or whatever, and you start small and then you grow it up from there.
I think also, like, the team building aspect of it was really, really powerful at Airbnb. It's really, you know, it is hard to quantify this with money. I mean, there's no way to tell how, you know, if it's actually helping the bottom line, but when you bring a team into the space and they're having a crappy day and then everybody leaves really happy with the poster that they made together, everyone just feels so good, and it makes you feel like if your job is like, you're really worth it, because I think that's really important at work.
So I wanted to ask, in regards to, you know, proving the value of this, in addition, I think, to retention, do you know if there's anything that's been done, like, as far as studies in regards to avoiding burnout across channels, not only engineering, but also marketing and sales? Is that with good productivity avoiding burnouts?
Yeah, so I don't know of any specific studies, but certainly when we discussed kind of the value of these spaces, burnout is a big thing that we're attempting to address in spaces like this. The idea that you can come into a space like this and kind of refresh yourself and come back excited, or maybe you're thinking about things in a slightly different way. That's a big goal of these types of spaces. But I can't speak to any specific studies as far as, you know, we haven't really necessarily measured what retention of folks through the space versus not in the space has been.
Well, speaking from experience, I'm in sales, and I burnt out really bad last year, and moved to oil paint, which saved me, so thanks to
Yeah. We have a suggestion wall in our space where if you want a certain machine or material or something or class, people write it, because people always often feel so comfortable coming and talking to us, so we try to find different channels where people can suggest that. And last week someone drew a t-shirt that said BRS saved my life, so I was kind of pleased. Oh yeah, cool, people are happy.
Hi, my name is Birgit. I'm coming from Germany, and I do studies about new learning culture. And given the fact that we have a lot of universities where they have fab labs already when they do engineering or anything, in fact, not only creative thoughts, well, engineering is creative too, then do you think could be a solution then that there is a fab lab not only inside the company, because then you have to have it more sophisticated, more elaborate, and more various machines and equipments. So what do you think about sort of co-working spaces or bigger fab labs? Or we have Airbus, for example, who have a huge hall and they expose it and anybody could come. What about things like that? You can't provide it all on your own in every company. Do you have examples already, or do you?
There's it started in San Francisco. It's called Tech Shop, and it's basically it's a makerspace, but it is the makerspace of all makerspaces, and it is really more centered around engineering. But they have CNC machines, they have 3D printing, they have 3D printing, laser cutting, so much, and it's all about having a community space there because they see that there's no way that everyone can afford to have all of these, and it's spread. I think I don't know if it's
There's one in Austin.
Definitely nationwide. There's one in Austin, and for them, yeah, it is a community space and it's a membership. So, I think, obviously, if you're working for a company that has a budget, then you can afford to do things like this. But I think that it could be even more powerful if it's in a community space.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Cooper. I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement for Lady Health in Boston. And I want to tell you, this is one of the panels that I was most looking forward to coming and seeing while I was here. And my question is, you talked about it being a great leveler, bringing people together. How much organic leadership involvement do you have? And by that I mean, how much do you have to push the leaders to go versus them just naturally going on their own?
I mean, I think it really depends on the leader. Quite honestly, at Facebook, like, Mark was super appreciative and super hands-off, and that's kind of the leader that he is, you know. He trusts a lot of people. You know, I think at Pinterest, it's also like quite similar. They're really open to things, and you know, the budgets aren't quite as big, and so we might have to present our case a little bit more. But it's really dependent on the leader. It's really that sort of leadership style. You might come across someone that is a little bit more top-down or wants to be a little bit more involved, and you just sort of have to, in my experience, you have to sort of change your pitch to sort of fit that person's personality.
Yeah, we have, you know, varying kind of, in the leadership zone, we have, you know, a VP who comes when she has a 1-hour slot in between her meetings to like indigo dye stuff because she's so obsessed with dyeing that even when she took her sabbatical, she spent the entire sabbatical in the studio at work making, you know, dyed garments. She was kind of thinking, what's in my, you know, where's my career going? And this was the sort of thing where it like actually kind of breathed some new life into her, gave her new focus. Yes, not all leaders get it too. It's kind of figuring out how to speak their language as well.
Hi, first, thank you all for being here. My name is Willem Buurk. I'm from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. You guys are all from big organizations. I run a small ad agency from Amsterdam. And I was wondering, and in that agency I want to promote the making culture, but we are small, both in size, in space, and in staff. So I was wondering, do you have any advice on where to start when you don't have the space or capabilities to start really a room or a space for making?
There's a bunch of starting points, but I would say holding an informal workshop. Like when we did block printing, that was really easy because everyone can go at their own pace. They have their own style, and then you can all print together, and that's really a fun thing to do. So I think starting in those small ways where you're not necessarily bringing equipment into the space, like fully forever, just these temporary kind of pop-up things that gets people excited about it and gets people questioning why they don't do this more often.
Yeah, I mean, when I was freelancing at a small studio, we did something called Draw Club, and it's actually something that I brought to Facebook as well. And that's just paper and pencil and saying, hey, like, we're gonna have some beers and draw for like an hour and a half, and here's a bunch of objects or people, and you just get around and do that. And similarly to Patrick's point, it's like that's the first nugget of, you know, people coming together, realizing like, oh, we'd like to do this, I'd like to do this, or I would love to continue to do this at work, and it just starts from there and snowballs.
And I think a lot of time people need just a little bit of a nudge to get going. So at IBM, someone has created this website called A Moment to Make, which captures people's little side projects on a website. So like, let's say I'm at home, I'm working on like building a bar top in my backyard. Like no one would ever know that I'm doing that, but yeah, I just need an opportunity to show people and kind of showcase what I'm doing. And one thing she also did was create these little cards that just say, do anything on this, and you can draw on it and then just deposit it into this little mailbox, and then I'll post it online. So that kind of inspired people to like, you know, you could do a little napkin sketch, you could paint it, you could, you know, laser cut it, you could emboss it, but just a little impetus to do something, even at your desk.
I just think kind of what people are good at, what do staff like to do already first. And I think with a lot of these is really providing a safe place for people to feel like they can do this. People enjoy it, but they always have that sort of like limit where they feel like they don't have the proper space or the people to make them feel comfortable. So it's really, I think for me, it's about the people. You know, if you're here wanting to do this, do it. What do you like to do and share that? That's exciting.
Hi, my name is Brian. I'm a motion design director at the Media Company here in Austin. And the culture crew is in the process of developing HR is buying in. Like, you guys were talking about a very bottom-up model in a lot of ways, the hamburger. But like, once you guys are up and running, how have you balanced driving from what the employees are asking for, what HR is, like, how have you interacted with human resources, and how's that affected the program you're doing?
I would say our space is not up and running, so I'm not qualified to answer that question.
I mean, my experience was that HR was like super hands-off in our experience. And in Facebook, I don't know if they got the Airbnb, but interest. And they're more interested in other issues. And this is, for us, these are things that make people happy and enjoy. And if people are like, why don't we have this thing? Then it's actually showing value, because this thing came out of nowhere, right? These maker spaces that we have at Pinterest that came out of nowhere. And so it's actually a benefit for us, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think we didn't have a lot of issues with HR, but we did have some issues with facilities, because it does require facilities, and you do have to be up to code with OSHA. So I think that, I think a big part of it is finding people who can specialize in that type of thing. Like, if you wanted to do screen printing, find somebody who knows how to screen print, so that when it comes time to talk to facilities, they can be like, no, like, it's fine, like, it's not a big deal, we just need X, Y, Z. Other than that, it's just been about, like, kind of just being comfortable and just, like, standing up for it and acting like it's meant to be there, because it is. And you're always going to have people who are like, well, there's no meeting rooms, and we have this art studio, and we're going to have our meeting room here. And then, having your champion who can say, no, like, this is a really important space here, and sticking up for it. So, that's me.
One more. I have one more answer to his question. So as far as HR, we've also been trying to build partnerships with HR, because HR is really concerned with like leveling up their employees. So they're really concerned with like people taking online courses, getting badges, getting certified in certain things. And so this is a way to kind of build into that, because then they can learn new skills like screen printing, like 3D printing, 3D modeling. All those things kind of build into an employee's journey and growth at a company. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Justin, I work for a video game company in Paris. I was curious if you guys ever thought about, so for example, you work in a large software company like we do, if you're looking at the content of what you're making, and you're going, okay, so let's say you can make something, we can take people who go, okay, we're going to take your Raspberry Pi, and we're going to take people who've never really worked with a Raspberry Pi, and that's what our making is going to be, or we're going to do something that's very physical, get your hands dirty, paint. Is that part of what you're thinking about? My first reaction is like, yes, we're trying to start thinking about doing this, and go, well, what's going to be most interesting and satisfying for a bunch of software developers and people who spend their whole day dealing with video games? Do we want to push more towards the Raspberry Pi, small machine learning stuff, or do we want to? And is there a value in asking ourselves a question about what we're making versus what our industry is?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think you have to let them kind of tell you what they're most interested in or see what they make, because there's people in our studio that are super passionate about Raspberry Pi, even though they are on their computers 99% of the day, but they're usually not making software. Like my coworker's making like a voice-activated math quiz for his daughter, so like stuff like that, but he still gets super psyched up about it. And so I think just letting them express what's interesting to them and then giving them a vehicle to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an architecture analogy where like an architect is going to build a park, right? And they have two paths in there, and they open up the park, right? So here's like one path here, and here's one path here, and they said like, we're going to wait a month, and we're going to see how people use the park, and then that's going to be the third path. And I think that's really the case, and I think Ryan touched on it before, where it's like, sort of tap into what people are interested in. And if you're not getting feedback, maybe people are too shy, like, then you make a really small bet, and you bring something that you're interested in, and then you'll get feedback right away.
Yeah, we had our sort of second part of the studio called hands-on tools, and we we kind of actually waited 8 months until people actually told us what they want instead of like throwing a bunch of money on a bunch of machines which no one would use. You know, it turns out people wanted stonewashing, but that's not something Nike does when they asked for it. So we started with some things that we knew were going to safe bets, screen printing, sewing, kind of up and running. We do those things. But then what are the things that people wanted a CNC mill, they wanted stonewashing, they wanted indigo, all those sort of things. So they kind of told us.
Thank you. Yes. And yeah, you can ask a question and grab a poster.
Thank you. My name is Kosuke. I'm management of the co-working space in Tokyo. We have a resident CNC 3D printer. So I want to ask you, how do you management your community? I think you guys tell us how to start, and then how to build a community and interaction to each other member. So how do you do the community management?
Great question. So not only how do you start, but how do you build a community? How do you continue to grow that? I think for us, the weekly classes have been super crucial to that, and then, the monthly workshops. So we have weekly screen printing classes, so I think you could, probably do a similar model, but maybe with something else. And then our monthly workshops are just showcasing someone that has a special skill, like block printing or like file setup or holograph or collaging. All of those things. So that helps bring in new people and kind of grow your champions.
Yeah, I would also say with those classes, having a clear survey afterwards, get feedback and understand how well that class performed, if it was overbooked and people want 10 more classes, or if they really didn't like it at all and they just wanted a different teacher. That feedback loop, people are more than welcome to give that to you.
I think also one thing that I noticed at the common studio is having open hours was really helpful. At Airbnb, like everyone's schedules are so jam-packed that it was really hard for people to schedule time. If there were a specific class at a specific time, a lot of times it wouldn't end up getting attended because people would have this intention to go, but then something would come up and they wouldn't be able to do it. So we ended up having Wednesdays be a completely open day. So I would go and I would have some loose plan of what I wanted to maybe do, but ultimately I would just be there as a resource for people to come in and use the space, and that ended up being the most successful thing because it was more free time.
We also have kombucha on tap, which I think that helps, and beer, and coffee, and things like that. Like we didn't spend a lot of money on corporate furniture. We just went and made stuff or bought it ourselves. Like just creating a physical environment is really important. I don't know, Portland loves kombucha. I bet Austin does too. But that helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys carve out a certain amount of time in an employee's day that they're allowed to come use the space, or how in a world of billable timesheets and things like that, is a lot of it done at night and free time, or is it during the workday? And you guys kind of proportionately?
For us, it's 99% after hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if someone has a free day, like there's nothing to do today, they'll step into the lab and do something, but it's 99% 3 hours. And I hope we can start to change the culture of that, because it's really nice to have a break in the middle of the day when you're stuck or feeling uninspired, etc. But today it's mostly after hours.
Yeah, I started after hours and then started to, when I was designing projects, I would say, hey, we could save some money, do it this way. And, slowly scooted projects into the lab. And I still do that at Pinterest today. So that's how I sort of balance that. And then in terms of other people's, like, people have to show up. How do they make the time for that? And we've always left that up to them. Hopefully people have downtime between projects.
Airbnb, we definitely had people coming in during the day, but it was always a matter of finding time. And I think like what I did to try to grow the community was giving people this incentive of like, well, if you come during these hours and I teach you everything, like then you can come in on your own, but you can't just come in and use everything without having gone through this initial, kind of training. So that was a great way to bring people in, and then they were kind of more autonomous in the space with Google telling them what the goal was.
I think we're a product company, so it's maybe less hard to sell. there's definitely a lot of after hours and weekend stuff going on, just for the love of making.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for all the examples and sharing your back. This has been really great, and we appreciate it. From an agency side, we build labs to try to get you guys like you to come, right? And then I can justify the ROI all day. So what are the things that you guys or people on your team or your marketing teams would want to go somewhere else and do that you can't do internally?
So, in terms of the team building aspects, basically we have workshops, whether they're a week long, a month long, or 3 months long, all the time, and they always go to a local screen printing shop and do a team building activity to print a shirt or a poster at the end of that experience. And one day I want to bring that into our space, but that's one thing that's proven really valuable for those shops lately, because we basically have a party with a food truck, and they all go together and print shirts, and that's extremely fun. So that's one example.
Everyone at Airbnb wanted a workshop. Just what they can do. But I think that people, when they think of maker spaces, they think of laser cut. Like people would come in and be like, "There's a laser cutter." Like this is what people call the machine shop, like car parts. But I think laser cutting was really a big ask. Wood shop was something people were always interested in.
We do speakers and things like that in our space too. So we, from Tom Sachs to a gold medal fencing champion to an artist from New York or whatever. So I think for us that's been a big draw. I think as an agency we work with other people who are really interesting and exciting. As they're like that filling out the community part of thing. Like what are the special skills that we can't do inside that you guys can bring to technological advancement stuff that we don't have. I think that seems interesting.
I mean, one of because your question was really like, what are we not doing that we really want to do? And so the one thing that I've always wanted, the four of us are incredibly privileged to be where we're working and to be doing this kind of work. I would want this sort of spread to students in middle school and high school, because I know that I would not be where I am today if I wasn't encouraged to draw and paint and get dirty. And I think that art classes are getting cut. I think that those spaces and that encouragement is more important than ever. And I would love to see like an 826 for NCR, 826 National for art and making spaces. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Please come grab a